therapeutics, are every kind of, and that's actually, you ready, Adam?
Yep.
Great. Listen, welcome to the green room,
Welcome
everybody.
to the green room, everybody. Another great episode.
We do. We got a great guest, Adam Elend. I was just explaining to Adam how the green room came about. This is our 61st episode. I know.
And we have a great audience. It's not only Florida-based, it's a national-based audience.
It is. And really originally, nice. I remember sitting in the office with you, Ruta. We talked about the combination of medical, right?
And political from my
side. Political, right?
Yeah.
and uniquely. And we've really had a great series of guests.
Oh my God.
And this morning we have Adam Elend. But listen, I want to start, Adam. I love the painting in the background.
Yes,
and either you did it or maybe your 6-year-old daughter. I'm not quite sure, but I love it.
Yes, this is artwork.
Very well.
This is called the Power of Love. It's a set with the power of color over in front of her desk. So we kind of have our desks facing each other, and we keep our. So she's into series now. This is a 6-year-old phase, I guess.
Oh, listen, I want to start there with you, and we'll introduce you formally in a moment. But it is the green room. We always start out talking a little bit of politics and what's going on currently.
Let's talk about COVID.
And we have to talk COVID because that's where we're at right now. And you have the 6-year-old child, of course. Starting first grade or kindergarten or what?
First grade. She's a first grader, not rising anymore. She's an actual first grader, so it's pretty crazy. Cool.
So explain how you're feeling as a parent, kind of sending your daughter off into what I think all of us agree is.
Well, let's give a setup. We need to know who he is. People are going to be like, "Who is this guy on our screen?"
Rudy, you always know.
No,
listen. So Adam Elend, well, yeah, for sure. But I saw the painting. It took me right to his other side of his life. So Adam, if you see in the background, guys. And on our background is listen, he is like what you're looking behind us, an original seed in the Florida cannabis world who wants to sprout into what you see behind us, right? A germinating thing. Adam and I met, Ruta. So Adam is an attorney here in Florida, been involved with Joe Render and Joe's group, Florigrown, and you'll talk all about it. But the point is, Adam and I met when we were literally suing the state of Florida for the right to grow your own cannabis in the state of Florida back in January of 2017, right? And Joe Render brought the case to the fore. Adam was working on the team, and they reached out to me in my infantile state of medical cannabis to be the Florida doctor involved. And I agreed. It was the greatest thing in the world because Dustin Sulak, one of the best cannabis clinicians in the world, quite frankly, was their main doctor who was coming down from the state of Maine. So I got a chance to meet Dustin, Joe Render, Adam Elend, and really integrated into the cannabis world in a very unique way. We won the case. State won the case on appeal. Supreme Court wouldn't hear our case. It's the last time I'll tell the joke. I was going to buy a new shirt, tie, and suit for the Florida Supreme Court, but they wouldn't hear our case. So anyway, Adam also, of course, has led the effort for Florigrown to get a license here in the state of Florida, which has been a years-long battle involved in the courts. And I know you'll tell us all about what's going on with that. So that's my buddy Adam Elend, who's been there.
I got to correct you on one thing, though, because I think I could get in trouble for it. I am not an attorney. I am
you are not an attorney. I'm so sorry,
Adam. I am a professional plaintiff. I hired attorneys, but I'm not an attorney.
I apologize. It's the second time. No, it's the second time I've done that. I know. The other one was Ben Polera. It was Ben Polera, I thought was an attorney too. No, it's because you're so, listen, when you're well-spoken and you're so involved, and listen to me, you don't need to be an attorney to know the legal side of what you've been fighting for the period of time that you have, just like you don't need to be a doctor necessarily to be deeply involved in medical cannabis. So Adam's a plaintiff, a CEO, a principal. Okay, let's put it that way. But
as the state said, he's not even an attorney. He's just a video producer. That's what the state said about me in one of their responses. So.
Well, no, I think they did that to Ben Polera too. I think they said to Ben, you're not even an attorney.
They love those charming responses. Okay, so now we can bring up COVID.
Okay,
I know. So tell us about your experience of sending your child off to first grade.
Levels.
The first thing I want to say is I live in Tampa. I live in Hillsborough County. Kudos to the Hillsborough County School Board voting for a real mask mandate in defiance of the governor and at risk to their own jobs.
Brilliantly done by attorneys, by the way, to add that. They added a clause into the mask now as part of the dress code of Hillsborough County school children. Brilliant way to get it under the radar.
I did not hear that. Thank you.
That's how they got it in. Brilliant.
That's brilliant. That's brilliant because we mandate all sorts of things for students to wear.
Put it right into the bylaws and
Beautiful.
changed it and said mask ordinance now.
So I assume your daughter at 6 just takes this as normal at this particular point in time, right, Adam?
Right. So I was in a privileged position to be able to send my daughter to school last year in the height of COVID. It was a very difficult decision, but she's at a private school, a Montessori school. She was then, and we were going to go to public school for kindergarten, but we couldn't because of COVID. So we ended up sticking with the school that we'd been with, and they worked with us in a great way to ensure the best safety we could. So we've had her in school all the way through, and on balance, even though it was stressful every day, it was the right decision because I think the lack of development and the limitations put on kids by being at home, it's so tough. I mean, necessary and tough at the same time. It's just really tough. So I was lucky. I don't think everybody's in that position, but that's why I cheered so hard when Hillsborough County Schools did that, because for everybody, you should be able to have that protection. And we sort of created a false narrative that this just didn't have anything to do with kids early on. There's science there. I mean, it's harder for them to get it and harder for them to transfer it. But with Delta being so much more contagious, I just hate seeing these numbers, like 8,700 kids out in Hillsborough County schools in the first 2 days for quarantine. It's just something's gotta,
and children are getting it. In fact, one of the physicians that works here, that works coverage for us, his wife is the head charge nurse at Sarasota Memorial Hospital. They had as young as 30 days old already, and the parents got it and they gave it to the baby, and the baby was in the ICU. So children are getting it, sadly.
No, we lost a cannabis clinician in the state, unfortunately, from the Panhandle a couple of weeks ago. Adam, a retired ER doc, actually, age 71.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I think that's the frustration. I think like the medical profession's burnt out. They're beyond.
That's why I
exhausted.
came in a little depressed today. Donna looked at me and said, "Well, Doc, what's the matter with you this morning?" I said, "Well, I read about the doctors on the front lines who are now shaking their heads. They're literally having to take a deep breath before walking into that ICU room and preparing themselves to meet patients that were vaccine deniers who are now going to die." I mean, if you're in the ICU and your oxygen level is still at a certain point in time, and they're talking about intubating you, there's a 50-50 shot that tube is not coming out.
Well, yesterday, in fact, I was talking to a girlfriend. She's
disaster.
She's a COVID nurse at Sarasota Memorial. A 43-year-old male and a 47-year-old female died yesterday.
It's disaster.
They're in their 40s now dying. It's like, what is it
It's
gonna
so
take?
scary. And I don't want any of my friends, and I have friends and family, they're still unvaxxed. And I've literally said to them, listen, it's 50-50 that you're going to get it. There's some percentage that you're going to get sick with it, and a small percentage that you're going to die. Nobody has died from this vaccine. To the best that I know in my reading as a doctor, and I've had to come out strong at him, I was pretty quiet for the early part of this, I'll be honest with you. What's frustrating to me is that a couple, 3-4 months ago, I got rid of all my masks. Oh, look at that. We got the green.
You're on the green screen.
The green screen. I know the green screen. Oh, that's true.
It's actually been
Adam told me.
Oh, you're making it work. You got close, but not right there. Enough spraying.
Yeah, a little.
So I've stopped being silent about it because the emergency physician in me now, needs to speak out daily. So I've added it into, pretty much the speech. People need to start believing their doctors. When do people stop believing in their doctors? It's stunning. And that's what's frustrating the doctors so much. We've trained, we've studied, we've learned the best that we can about how to manage health. And yes, we're in 2021. It's a unique period of time. But doctors still in general believe in science, in vaccines, and I just
and it's exhausting.
It is exhausting.
I sympathize with you and the whole profession. It mystifies me, and at the same time, every time we've had a crisis like this in our country, and there have only been a few of them, it's always been met with skepticism and questions and, and politics instead of just good health policy. I think it's something about our country.
In a war, the country tends to unite. See,
Yes.
And that's why I'm so frustrated how this was initially rolled out in a divisive fashion, versus a uniting fashion. And, Adam, just, kind of segueing into the battle that you fought.
Yeah.
Quite frankly, also against all kinds of different concerns. And,
Yes.
Your goal has always been, and I'll let you speak for yourself, has always been for patient access, be it
Yes.
from the home grow angle, from the breaking up of the vertical, from
Yes.
allowing people to get involved in cannabis that haven't been able to get involved. Right. So,
I'm
you said it,
curious,
Dr.
Adam,
Barry.
myself, because I don't know you. So I'm curious, what made you so passionate about cannabis and home grow and fighting for all these rights?
Well, it's the confluence of two different things. One is my partner Joe in 2011 was diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer, and
Joe Redner, of course.
Yeah, Joe Redner, and it was a blow to everybody who was close to him. I've been working with him for 20 years now in one way or
I
another.
guess I didn't know that, Adam. So you and Joe predate all of this cannabis stuff.
Jeff and I, our other partner, have been partners for 25 years now in various businesses. And we met Joe back in '99 and struck up a really good friendship with him. And also he invested in a company we were working on, and we've just been friends and partners ever since. And then when he was diagnosed in 2011, it was a huge blow. And, he got very aggressive chemo and radiation. And in 2016, when the ballot initiative, the constitutional amendment was on the ballot, he put a billboard up on Kennedy, which is a main drag in Tampa, that said, medical marijuana saved my life. Vote for Amendment 2. And that's how he feels. And we saw that happen. We'd always been enthusiasts.
If you have pictures of that, Adam, I would love to see that billboard.
Oh, yeah. I have a little model of it. Yeah, that we have up on the, they gave it to us when he bought it.
Send me a picture of that. Yeah, I need that in my office.
I will. Yeah. And so we, prior to that, when he was going through treatment, we decided, let's do this together. Let's start a medical marijuana company in Florida. And so Jeff and I moved out to Colorado, and we spent 4 years there learning every aspect that we could of the marijuana industry, from growing to sort of the practice of selling it, to the regulatory system, everything. And we have a buddy who owned a vertical operation there, and we really just sucked up all the knowledge we could, and he was extremely generous, and other people in Colorado were as well. And then we came down here to do it, and we came down here and we campaigned for the amendment, like I said, the billboard. And then when it passed, we were super excited. We built a great team, 20 world-class people to be involved in our MMTC. We were going to do this. And then the amendment went into effect, and the Department of Health immediately issued these rules that essentially said, the old system's still in place, those are the MMTCs, and we're going to figure it out. They didn't know what they were going to do, but we said, that's not what the Constitution says. So right away, we filed a notice to the state that we were going to seek registration as an MMTC. So we let them know, hey, we are interested in doing this. We want to get in the front of the line. They rejected our application. So the whole premise of our lawsuit came from, they didn't have to reject our application. They chose to reject our application and said we could appeal. So they formally rejected our application, even though we didn't apply. We just sent them a notice. So that became the linchpin of our lawsuit 8 months later, when they refused to issue any rules, when they refused to start any licenses, when they had passed the 386, the statute that codified their old system instead of the new system that the Constitution required. Then we sued and asked them to follow the Constitution, the plain words of the Constitution. So I could get into the specifics of our lawsuit, what we were suing about, but we lost.
Battle,
so what's the point? What?
3-year battle at this point?
4-year battle at this point.
Right.
Yeah. So we won hands down. We won in the circuit court. We won in the appeals court, which is very conservative and very pro-state, that district. And we won there. And then we went to the Supreme Court and they heard 2 oral arguments and then totally rubber stamped the state's view. So it was very frustrating. We really felt like we could win because the law was on our side. I mean, the words of the Constitution say something different than they're doing. All our arguments were on the plain text of the Constitution. But the reality is the judge, when we started our lawsuit, the Supreme Court was, 4 conservatives and 3 liberals. And now it's all DeSantis. All those liberals have been replaced with DeSantis appointees. And it's a different Supreme Court.
So where do we stand as we go forward, Adam? Because, really how I wanted to present the room today, because, we have a lot of people to watch from both inside Florida, outside Florida. Of course, everybody wants to know, how can I get in? Everybody wants to get in,
Right.
Of course, everybody wants, right. And that's from all the different angles.
Not just get in. Some people just want home grow. I mean, there's a lot of people who are fighting for
They do, but I want to circle back on the medical side for just one moment. Joe Redner, is still alive today because his goal is to juice his cannabis. Joe wants the THCA component on the cancer fighting side. Joe is a juicer. Joe juices kale, bananas. That's his lifestyle. I'm not saying that Joe juices cannabis because it's illegal to do that in the state of Florida. We know that, but Joe's still alive. But that whole lawsuit of home grow, Ruta, had everything to do with the right to utilize that plant in the best way that you can for yourself. It had nothing to do in the world with intoxication of cannabis. It had to do with Joe's desire to get that THCA.
But there's home grow all over. I mean,
there is.
Home grow, and it's not a big deal. I mean,
well, we had to make all those arguments in our case because they made a safety argument against us. I'm talking about Joe's case. We collaborated on the case, but it was Joe who was suing. They challenged us on safety. We explained that the same rules that govern the concentrated form of THC that you're allowed to buy and keep in your home, those same rules can govern a growing plant, which is, on its own, nothing, in terms of, it's very much something, but it's not anything dangerous for the idea that they couldn't say you need to have it behind a locked door. We went and looked at other states and what the regulations are. They're stupid simple. To be able to keep that safe is stupid simple, as opposed to some other, form of production or something like that. But
so where's the OMU and licenses right now, Adam? What can we expect? We tell our patients that we have the number that we have now.
And most people do.
We want to hear your view, man.
I'll believe it when I see it. I mean, they attested in our status hearing yesterday, day before yesterday, that there could be as many as 19 licenses. So they're going to release 19.
Well, Kramer was going to build levels on Seinfeld also. Okay.
Yes.
And he never did.
But let's think this through.
Sick. The OMU is going to get positives out of me when they deserve it, and they do. Their paperwork is better. They're this, they're that. But we get so frustrated by this type of nonsense. There's forms that we've been promised for 4 years, and things we still don't have to make the system. This is similar. Okay, get these licenses out.
But so I just think there is no reason they haven't been issuing licenses all along. They have consistently said since we won in the circuit court that our case was the reason that they had not been able to issue licenses. And that is just bullshit.
Why
Excuse
is
my
that?
language, but
What is
it's
that?
just
What
bullshit.
was their
They
reasoning
they
behind
they
that?
were never enjoined. As a matter of fact, everything that we won was stayed the entire time. And just to add insult to injury, I couldn't think of it for a second. Insult to injury, they gave away 7 licenses while our case was under review. So they can give away licenses, but they can't issue any. They can't have an application process, even though they have a constitutional requirement to give out those licenses within 6 months of when the population reaches each level. And now we're at
100,000 patients, 4 new licenses.
Exactly. And
Adam,
so
do you foresee, like, do you think there should be some kind of corruption probe into the whole industry in the state of Florida? Because it's very interwoven with a lot of crap. And I mean, just like from what you're saying, there's a lot of components in this that are just don't smell right.
Indeed, there are a lot of components that don't smell right. And as far as whether there should or shouldn't be a corruption investigation, I feel like what's more important to me is to think about the structure that created that opportunity for corruption. So if you look at the structure, what we said in our case the whole time is this is not a medical marijuana market, it's a medical marijuana license market. People are buying and selling these licenses for the paper, and the system encourages them to do that because it's a very limited number of licenses. They're God licenses. Grow as much as you want, as many dispensaries as you want, process as much as you want. So you self-regulate if you get one of these licenses. So it really is a God license, very limited number, and then you can sell them to whoever you want. That's just a recipe for corruption, a recipe for it. And, as far as the way it was developed, I'm sure there was plenty of pay to play. I'm sure that there was, because that's the way our state works. It's worked that way from the beginning. It's the way it's designed. And that's unfortunately, our fight is connected to a lot of other fights, not just about marijuana. Our lawsuit was about a constitutional amendment. The courts and the legislature have eroded the power of this state's citizens to get things put into their amendment, their constitution for 30 years. Class size amendment, Everglades amendment, over and over and over.
No, it's consistent.
So our case was one in a long line of amendment cases where they're trying to say legislature over citizens. That is really the way our system is built up. The plenary power in this state is legislature over citizens. So Dr. Berry, you asked, so what do we do now? Where is it going? The Supreme Court made it clear. Legislature has the authority. So get over there and push that legislature. You have to do it. We have to get our change through the legislature, and we have to change who's in the legislature. We have no other choice. I was just going to
say, you have to change who's in the legislation boards and who sits on the committees and all the legislators of the state. Because one of the things that we had, interestingly enough, we had Department of Head of Agriculture, Nikki Fried on.
Sure.
And, we were talking about that the voices of the people aren't being heard, because if you look at the votes of the people and what people are voting for, the people of the state, it's very different than what the legislators are coming out with for decrees and amendments and things like that. They're not listening to the people.
It's an opposite. It's an opposite of those things.
Opposite. Yeah. And yet they keep getting voted in. And it's like, until these people start, like the common people start hearing, your legislators that you keep voting in are not voting in your favor consistently, until they get that wake up call. It's going to take us, I mean, you're in what, year 4 battling? You're going to be here for another 4, because those legislators aren't going to change very much, unfortunately. And like, how do you, like, where are you getting your motivation to keep fighting? Because you're going uphill with all these people who are sitting there.
Well, you say I'm going to be there for another 4. I'm not so sure. As I was telling you guys before we started, we had a status hearing on our case after we lost at the Supreme Court. We were going back down to the lower level of the court, the circuit court. And 3 hours before our hearing, haven't had any contact since the ruling. The state filed a notice that they were going to seek sanctions against us and our attorneys if we continue with the lawsuit. Our idea was we don't know what's coming out. There's a lot of new information coming out. There was a federal trial that just finished that had some information about the medical marijuana system. There's, daily new stuff coming out. We want to see what's happening because the Supreme Court made clear in completely ruling against us on page 41 in the footnotes, they said, this is only based on the facts and arguments that are before us. This is a preliminary injunction. This doesn't preclude new facts from coming up. And we don't know if there are new facts, but we want to explore it. And the state's saying, if you do that, then we're going to seek sanctions against you. So it's sort of like, instead of just trying to dismiss the case, they're walking up to us and saying, pick up the gun.
Yeah,
and then when
like
pick
really,
it up,
seriously, it's like
you know what? I guess I just must be the simpleton here, and the simple ER doctor brain in me says, why doesn't the state just give you guys a license already and just allow things to go on? We're not back in 2017. It's 2021. They've given out, what you say, Adam, seven
licenses,
whatever.
Well, they've given out all the licenses. So they had 5, 7 after lawsuits that were grandfathered, and every other one has been given away. It's just when it was given away. So with no application process. So I mean, the status we have right now is we have 22 MMTCs, and every company that applied during the 2015 low THC, you had to be a 30-year nursery with 400,000 plants, which was found to be racist. Everyone who applied to that now has a license, and nobody else.
Everyone that applied to that,
every single one that made it to the actual application review. So there were a couple that didn't fill out their forms right, that they don't count. But the 22 that made it to application review, every single one of them has a license. Well, they don't because they've all sold them. But yeah, they were issued a license. Yeah.
Yeah. But you were not one of those 22, or you guys were in that same
We didn't
group?
qualify. That was that the
didn't qualify. They didn't take the application.
Yeah, well, no, I mean, we didn't never had an opportunity to apply because that was, you had to be a 30-year Florida nursery, which means selling nursery plants in Florida for 30 years. And that was the one that the federal trial last week revealed that there was suggested malfeasance as far as shaping that law to benefit specific people. It's none of it's confirmed, but it is evidence in a trial.
I know you're not a lawyer, Adam, but that was pretty lawyerly. That was pretty lawyerly done. No, listen, we all know.
Diplomatic.
We all know that the original awarding of the licenses was done in a certain way. And as certain cases, and I think the Matt Gaetz case, also, that investigation taught us some things about how the medical director side, right, for the MMTCs came about because it was suggested. So that's what happens. That's how legislation is put together. And I'm so sorry that and listen, I'll go all the way back to Joe. Joe Render, God bless him, and let's hope we get another 20 years of having Joe with us. Joe is he's so unique in his perspective and his battles, but I think his battles always go to personal freedoms, in general, and the ability for people to live their life the best they can as long as they don't negatively impact others.
There you go. That's it.
So I don't want to speak for Joe Render, but I have always respected Joe. And I thank you guys so much for allowing me initially to become involved. And as you know, like I said, I bought my suit and tie to go up to Tallahassee for my 32nd appearance, but I'll buy another one for the Supreme Court or wherever we go. Listen, the right to home grow is always going to be one of the hallmarks, okay, of a appropriate, equal, egalitarian, open cannabis system. It just is.
So is an open market system, and we've been fighting for both those things. And you started it with the most important thing, which is access, patient access, and access for the people who've been most affected by the war on drugs to participate in the market. That's what we're about, those two things. And that's what our fights were about. And we weren't successful yet, but we'll keep fighting. And we hope everybody in Florida keeps fighting, because we need these things. Access is important. A thriving, functional market is important. Our patients deserve
Competition
that.
is important because you get better quality when and
Yes.
more consistency with more competition. I agree with it wholeheartedly. Where do you see, so what's up for you in the next 6 months to a year? Where do you see yourselves at with everything? I know you said the sanction debate is coming up. And
So I really don't know. You'll have to have me back on to give you some definite answers to that question. But I know that we're not backing down. I think there are a lot of opportunities to have more people participate in the space with the structure that we're given. I think that I'm going to be fighting for wholesaling and B2B, for them to be able to sell to each other, for them to be able to contract, so we can start bringing more people into the market with the license system they chose. The Supreme Court said it's theirs. So I'm going to be fighting to try to bring more people into it that way, because I want more people in this business. I want the person I met at a community meeting who said, I make essential oils. Do you think I could make a THC oil? I want her to be able to work with an MMTC and do it, but there's no way to do that now. That's the whole thing, so.
Yeah, it's still very restricted.
Yeah, I just appreciate your perspective, Adam, because I tell people that also on what I do on the medical side. You can only work within the system that is given to you within the state that you're in, and fight hard to change the system, but also advance what you do within the system while you do it. So, it's a walking of the fence to a certain extent, but I just don't think we can get advancement in cannabis or medical cannabis if we don't play within the system that we're given and also fight to improve it. And,
You have
and
to
I think
fight.
that's
Yeah,
what I
I
hear
think you have
from
to
you.
It's true. Guys, unfortunately, I have to jump
I know
to
you
a
have
call.
to jump off.
But I have really appreciated this conversation, and you'll have to have me on again so we can keep chit chatting. I'll bring the
We
rest of the
will.
group.
We got our patience too.
Absolutely.
Adam, you've been fantastic. Thank you.
Thanks everyone for tuning in, and we'll see you
you.
next week on the Green Room.
Stay
Thank
safe and
you.
healthy.